This video is about adjective clause. The adjective clause is a dependent clause that modifies a noun or a pronoun and have the same function as single-word adjectives. It will begin with a relative pronoun or a subordinate conjunction. Relative pronouns introduce adjective clauses: who, which, whom, whose, that. And these subordinators introduce adjective clause: where, when, why. Who is used for only people. For example, the man is a police officer. He lives next door. In this sentence we can use who instead of police officer and change the structure of the sentence to: the man who lives next door is a police officer. Whom is the objective form of who and refers only to people. Pay attention to the following sentence. He is a police officer. I respect him very much. He is a police officer whom I respect very much. Which is used for animals, things and groups of people. For example, last week someone hit Ed's dog. The dog was only a puppy. Last week someone hit Ed's dog, which was only a puppy. That can be used for people, animals, and things. I also gave his son a book. The book tells about caring for pets. I also gave his son a book that tells about caring for pets. Whose is used for animals, things, and groups of people. It shows possessions. In the following sentence, whose is used instead of their. We should report pet owners. Their animals are mistreated. We should report pet owners whose animals are mistreated. For time, we should use when. Listen please. This is the time of year. There are good sales now. This is the year of year when there are good sales. Sometime we confuse adjective and adverbs clause beginning with when and where. We should know that adjective clauses modify nouns, and adverb clauses modify verbs. Examples: my parents called on a day when I was out. It is an adjective clause. Because when refers to the word day. But in the following sentence when refers to called, so it is adverb clause. They called when I was out. Or in the following sentence, where refers to restaurant and it is an adjective clause. But in the second sentence, where I work, is an adverb clause. I eat at the restaurant where I work. I eat where I work. It is important to place the adjective clause immediately after, or, as close as possible, to the noun it describes. Pay attention to the following sentences. The first one is correct and second one is wrong. Because who refers to the senator and should be located near it. The senator who is from Arizona hopes to run for president. The senator hopes to run for president who is from Arizona. In the second one, who refers to president and it is not our meaning. Sometimes a short prepositional phrase occurs next to a noun and also modifies it. It is best to keep the propositional phrase after the noun. He lives in an area of Colorado that is a famous ski resort. This is correct. He lives in an area that is a famous ski resort of Colorado. It is wrong. The other point is that the noun before the verb, be, and the noun after the verb, be, often refer to the same person. If you want to add an adjective clause to the sentence, the adjective clause should follow the noun subject. My brother is a doctor. We should use the word who, after my brother, not doctor. My brother who lives in Texas is a doctor. My brother is a doctor who lives in Texas. The other examples in this case. The woman who is standing over there is from Puerto Rico. Did you know that the man to whom you were speaking is Shirley's husband? Are you going to apply for the job that was advertised in the paper? Sometimes an adjective clause is needed to identify a noun and to make the meaning of the sentence clear. A necessary adjective clause is called a restrictive adjective clause. Pay attention to examples. All the students who do not study will fail this course. Will all students fail the course? No, only those students who do not study. Without the adjective clause in the mentioned sentences, the meaning is not clear. But sometimes the information in an adjective clause is interesting, but it is not needed to identify the noun or to make the meaning of the sentence clear. So it is a not necessary adjective clause. For better understanding, pay attention to examples. My brother who lives in Chicago got married yesterday. In this sentence, the speaker has two or more brothers. The adjective clause tells you it is the brother who lives in Chicago, not the brother in Texas. My brother, who lives in Chicago, got married yesterday. In this sentence, the speaker has only one brother. The clause in not needed to identify which brother. An unnecessary adjective clause is separated by commas from the rest of the sentence. My father, who is very tall, played tennis in college. I learned how to play tennis from my father, who is an excellent player. The relative pronoun that is used to introduce necessary adjective clause. It is not used to introduce unnecessary adjective clause. For example, Chicago, which is in the state of Illinois, is the third largest city in the United States. This sentence is correct. Chicago, that is in the state of Illinois, is the third largest city in the United States. This sentence is wrong. Because of that. Distinguish between necessary and unnecessary adjective clause is important. This is the point that if a noun is preceded by modifiers, these modifiers are usually enough to identify the noun. Therefore, the adjective clause is not necessary. For example, my grammar book, which is at home, was not very expensive. Which is at home is unnecessary, because we have grammar before noun. The other way to distinguish these two types is the following point. The name of specific places, persons, and geographical locations usually do not require a necessary adjective clause. Examples: Denver, which is a beautiful city, has two universities. Denver is a specific name. So the adjective clause is not necessary. Nelson Mandela, who spent many years in prison, became the first black president of South Africa. In these examples, Denver and Nelson Mandela are specific names, therefore the adjective clauses are unnecessary. The relative pronoun, who, which, and that can be the subject of an adjective clause. Pay attention to examples. I have a friend. He has many classical records. We can use who instead of he, so we have I have a friend who has many classical records. And here is a beautiful recording. It was made by the Boston Pops Orchestra. Here is a beautiful recording that was made by Boston Pops Orchestra. That is used instead of it. Whom is placed in front of the subject-verb combination. The man whom I met was a famous conductor. He is a man who enjoys classical music. In spoken and written English, when the pronoun functions as the object of the adjective clause, the relative pronoun is often omitted. For example, in the following example, whom can be omitted. She is the friend whom I visited last week. She is the friend I visited last week. The other point is that relative pronoun can be omitted only in necessary adjective clause. Examples: you will like the classical records which she bought in Vienna. Which she bought in Vienna is the necessary adjective clause, so which can be omitted. You will like that classical records she bought in Vienna. And the same for the following example. I am looking for the symphony that she bought last week. I am looking for the symphony she bought last week. Sometimes a preposition is used with a relative pronoun. In this case, the prepositions precede the relative pronouns. Pay attention to the following example. The man had just arrived in the United States. We spoke to, or with, him. In this sentence, the preposition, to, or with, is used. For using the relative pronoun, the preposition comes before relative pronoun. Listen. The man to whom we spoke had just arrived in the United States. The man with whom we spoke had just arrived in the United States. Moreover, prepositions may be separated from the relative pronouns and placed at the end of the adjective clause. Examples: the composer whom I am listening to is Brahms. The country which he was born in is Germany. Ms. Parks is the music teacher whom I studied with for many years. When that is used as object of the prepositions, the preposition can never be placed in front of the relative pronoun. Pay attention to examples. The concert that I told you about was last night. The concert about that I told you was last night. The first one is correct and second one is wrong. Because about is in front of that. The other point is, if the adjective clause is long, it is best to keep the preposition and relative pronoun together. Ms. Parks is the music teacher with whom I studied in Denver 2 years ago. Ms. Parks is the music teacher whom I studied in Denver 2 years ago with. Adjective clause can often be reduced to adjective phrases with no change in meaning. Examples: the student who is talking to the teacher is from China. The student talking to the teacher is from China. Both of them are correct. In the first one we have an adjective clause and second one is an adjective phrase. An adjective clause can be reduced to an adjective phrase only if the clause begins with who, which, or that as the subject of the clause, and contains a be form of the verb. Examples: the man who is wearing the gray suit is my uncle. The adjective clause start with who, and we have is, so who is can be omitted. The man wearing the gray suit is my uncle. The same for the second one. He is the person who is most concerned about my success. He is the person most concerned about my success. If there is no be form of the verb, it is often possible to omit the relative pronoun and change the verb to its ing form. For example, anyone who has a library card may check out books. Anyone having a library card may check out books. Who has changes to having. The library does not contain any studies which deal with psychological effects of the Civil War. The library does not contain any studies dealing with the psychological effects of the Civil War. Which deal changes to dealing. If the adjective clause needs commas, the adjective phrase also needs commas. You can get passport renewed at the Kennedy Building, which is located near the train station. You can get your passport renewed at the Kennedy Building, located near the train station. Some adjective clauses can be reduced to appositive phrases. An appositive phrase is a noun or pronoun with modifiers that is placed after another noun or pronoun to explain it. Example: history, which is my favorite subject, has always fascinated me. History, my favorite subject, has always fascinated me.